Okay guys, Brian here with VetteSource checking in today, Wednesday, middle of the week. We've been dealing with weather issues here in Houston, rain primarily, which has really kept me from getting out and doing what I wanted to do. Today what we're going to go ahead and work on with the formula on our continuing series of rebuilding the tune port injection, which quickly turned into a head gasket job and all the other repairs I could think of. As I got underneath the hood is the wiring harness repair, and we're going to get it ready for our paint, because our paint did actually, our underhood paint did arrive the other day finally on a 18-day trip from New Orleans, which is kind of amusing given the circumstances. But so today what I'm going to look at is the parts I was able to score from the Camaro Berlinetta that I've used as my thumbnail picture there. And in that picture, if you can kind of see, that thing, poor thing, was as nasty and filthy as it looked in the pictures. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to save much else. That thing looked like it had been parked in the woods for about 20 years with piles and piles of dirt and pine needles and everything else you could think of, critter droppings, all of it. But the amazing thing about it was I was able to scavenge what I needed. So if you watched our last video where we looked at our wiring harness and things, we noticed that unfortunately it was very melted and crispy. Right on this part where it actually attaches and holds this captive on the harness was melted. This piece was just melted really bad. And I wasn't even sure if an earlier F-body was going to work for us. And of course this was just crazy. This is actually our frame mount that went in there at the back that held the wiring harness onto the frame before it met up close to where the fuel rails were. So wasn't really sure what I was gonna find. I went exploring basically. You know, if you guys have seen some of my other videos, I do like to explore the salvage yards because frankly you never know what kind of treasure you're gonna find in there, and every time I go I seem to find good stuff. Now I don't know if that's commentary on how much waste there is out there, but it just means that I enjoy looking for it. So this 84 Camaro, after I dug through it for 45 minutes to get to the wiring harness, which was covered in dirt and all kinds of other stuff, I was able to find a really nice piece here. This is our left side, driver's side of our cover, protective cover over the wiring harness. And then of course this is our original, and there is what it's supposed to look like, our new piece that's going to go on there. So that was good. Now this piece, it did not have it on the car. It was a different attachment point. The wiring harness a little bit different, but I was able to find it. And of all cars, I was able to find this one. I didn't take a picture of it, but this piece was actually right underneath the hood of a 1990 Pontiac Transport. And if you don't know what a Pontiac Transport is, the best way to describe it is probably it's the father of the Pontiac Aztec, which was that abomination that became popular through when Breaking Bad, when Walter White used it as his daily driver in Breaking Bad. But the Pontiac Transport was almost as ugly as an Aztec, but not quite. So, and it was a vehicle from the early 90s. But when I popped open the hood of that Transport, it was sitting right there on the left inner apron, so it was perfect. So it worked for me. So I've got everything I need here to go ahead and do this properly, to put these pieces on. Actually, I'm sorry, put these two pieces on right here. These are our burn pieces here. So what we'll be doing today is I'll be reattaching these three pieces. We'll go ahead and do our scuff work, our prep work to get the inner fenders painted. Unfortunately, the humidity is way too bad today still, even though the rain's kind of subsided. So I'm not sure if I'll get to that yet, but let me get set up outside and we'll get back to it and we'll start putting some of the stuff on. I'll be right back with you guys. Hang tight. Okay guys, we're set up outside here with our parts ready to go. Now this is going to be a pretty low stress operation today. It's not real complicated. There's actually not even any bolting of parts that I need to get in here or things like that. These are basically just clip-on pieces that go onto these wiring harnesses. So of course this is our first harness. This would be our forward lamp harness right here that goes forward with these wires to the forward lamp. And then of course this is our main engine harness that goes over. You see it's thicker there. So one thing to note when you're looking at these, when you're tearing into them, see this material here, you really want to keep this material in here. This is a Cosmoline, like an insulation type thing. that's put on wiring harnesses from the factory so that they will be protected from weather and water and seepage. And it's one of those things that they put on there in the it's kind of a military application they started way back, I want to say in the 30s is when they created this. But you can see it's kind of a hard material, but it keeps things insulated, keeps it from being exposed to the elements. So this is our passenger side cap here. We're just going to slide this piece back over here, if I can get in there correctly. And you see where the tabs go in right there and lock into place. And then of course on this side, that locks in there. And then of course what I'm going to need to do today on my parts run is I'm going to go get some more electrical tape. And what that does is that tucks underneath there and binds right there with electrical tape, and that's what keeps that in place. So there's our one cover in. Let's see if I got that correctly. There we go. Okay, that one's on. And then we're gonna get to our next one here. And of course this one's a little bit more involved simply because it's got the wiring loom comes up all the way to it. And again, you can see that Cosmoline material or insulation, electrical insulation there, that's kind of it's really a thick viscosity type fluid, but it is a technically still a fluid. So what we do here is, if you look at this, you can see that's got the cutout there for this wiring loom. And what that does, it's got a little extension in here that locks into place and keeps that in there. So looking at my orientation again, let me see here, how did this go? Just give me a minute to figure out how my orientation was. Yeah, like this. And see, the only thing I missed from before was I missed that was burned right there. And unfortunately, that's part of that main harness, so I can't change that out. Let me see if I can figure out. Oh yeah, this is gonna go to the inside. Okay, because that's where our bolt is, right there, and we need to have the ability to get the bolt back in there. So you see those two clips slide in there. They clip in right, did I get that right? No, right there, right? And then once that wiring harness is on there, that's it, man. Like I said, this side of it is pretty low stress, so that's gonna do it for there. I'm just gonna have to live with this. And again, the keeper is okay in this part at least, so I can make that happen. In fact, what I'll do real quick is I'll go ahead and we'll test fit this in here. Let's see here, I've got to get my orientation correct. And get this here. Oh, you know what? I think I'm missing. Oh yeah, part of that actually broke. Okay. So once this is in, okay, that's all the way in there. And of course, right now I'm just gonna have to deal with this because I'm looking at it now. I can see this part of it was damaged and it broke from right there. So I'll make sure this is secure once we've got that in there and it won't come out. That's our forward lamp harness. I may end up having to run a zip tie around right here just to keep that in place, which we won't be able to see, but that's basically it for those pieces there. So give me a second, let me get set up with our just sandpaper, and we'll get done to our next part real quick of prepping up the areas we're going to paint tomorrow. I'll be right back. Alright guys, we're set up here with our camera as we're going to go ahead and surface prep our areas here. Now I went ahead and did this one the other day. This one I need to do a little more sanding on because the paint was completely gone on this. So I'm going to hit this a little bit with heavier duty sandpaper and get the rest of that rust off before I get that paint. That'll be one of the things I go grab today, is a can of semi-gloss Krylon for this. And then what we're going to do is just sand this area lightly in here with a 500 or 600 grit. You don't want to get too crazy on this. All you're doing is scuffing this up so that the paint has something to attach itself to. as when you're hitting it with the paint. And again, we're not going to be going crazy with this. This is going to be non-clear coated, just a basic to coat to get us back into looking correct, okay? Because this is one of the ugly areas that we need to focus on. So you can see here, I'm just kind of scuffing this area up. I'm not going to go too heavy because I'm actually using a 500, and you can see some of the yellow paint's coming off there already. I just want it good so surface will stick. And then what I'll need to do is also go ahead and buy my surface prep material, some wax remover for our next area, or for this area, because wax grease remover, because you want to clean it first, do a little more light sand, and then make sure that you've got it completely clean, because you don't want to paint over anything that's dirt. So we're working through that, and that's basically all there is to it, guys. The 500 or 600 leaves it pretty smooth, the surface, and I'm just gonna get that done there. And what that does is make sure there's no rust underneath there as well, and that gets the excess bits of paint that I sanded off of there. Like I said, you just want to make sure your area is clean before you try to throw new paint on it, because literally anything left underneath that coat is going to cause a new coat of paint to lift. Now again, it's not terribly important inside the engine compartment here, but I just don't want it to peel off in a huge amount while I'm there. You can actually see kind of how thick the paint is there. So that's pretty much got us where we need to be for today. Like I said, we're going to focus on this area, painting here. A lot of this back here is not going to need paint, simply because it's going to be covered with the other components. Windshield wiper motor goes there, headlight relays go there, our other relay stack goes there, brake boosters here. So you're really not going to see too terribly much inside here. I'll make sure this area is kind of clean back there. We'll make sure this is painted again, and then we'll go ahead and we'll hit some more paint over on this side as well. So I think honestly, other than, let me hit this one area here. Get that done. I think that's pretty much gonna wrap things up for us today. Again, as much as I can do with this level of humidity. The humidity is really high, and I don't want to paint it while it's super humid out here, because it just won't flow very well in this environment. So this will wrap things up today. I'll be back again probably this weekend with another update once we finish this, and then we'll go back into full scale putting things back together again in here. That should move pretty quickly. So appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you next time. See you then.